And it should take just a second.
Okay. All right, good afternoon and welcome to the May 31st, 2022 meeting of the ERCA Executive Committee. We will start by taking a roll call of board members to confirm attendance. Councillor Len Janice from Lakeshore.
Present.
Deputy Mayor Larry Verbeek.
Present.
Deputy Mayor Joe Bacchetti.
Present.
And we do have Kieran from Windsor. He is not present at the time. Are we expecting him, Danielle?
We are, Madam Chair.
Okay, we can continue without him. The land acknowledgement, I'd like to begin by acknowledging that this land is the traditional territory of the Three Fires Confederacy of First Nations, comprised of the Ojibwe, the Ottawa, and the Petawatomi peoples. We value the significant historical and contemporary contributions of local and regional First Nations and all of the original peoples of Turtle Island, North America, who have been living and working on the land from time immemorial. Are there any declarations of pecuniary interest? I'm seeing none. I need approval for the Tuesday, May 31st meeting of the Executive Committee. Moved by Deputy Mayor Verbeek, seconded by Deputy Mayor Joe Bacchetti. Anybody opposed? Well, we should have. Oh, there's Lenny, but we lost Len there for a moment. It's reconnecting. Okay, and that is carried. You're back, Len?
Yep.
Okay,
Good.
very good. We now need to convene as the hearing board, that the board of directors sit as the hearing board in respect of applications under section 28 of the Conservation Authorities Act, moved by Councillor Len Janice, seconded by Deputy Mayor Larry Verbeek. Anybody opposed? That is carried. Okay, so we're now going to conduct hearings under Section 28 of the Conservation Authorities Act in respect of 3 applications. Jordan Le Riviere Aid is requesting relief from access, ingress, and egress policy requirements to construct a dwelling addition at 585 McTeague Court in the City of Windsor. Baker Investments Limited is requesting relief from access, ingress, egress policy requirements to construct a commercial building at 8380-8474 Wyandotte Street East in the City of Windsor. And Drew Colson of Colson Design Build Inc. is requesting relief from access, ingress, egress policy requirements to construct a new dwelling at 515 McLeod Avenue in the town of Amherstburg. We as the hearing board are unaware of the matters being brought forward, and we are only now receiving and reviewing the information provided to us this afternoon. The authority has adopted regulations under section 28 of the Conservation Authorities Act, which requires the permission of the authority for development within an area regulated by the authority in order to ensure no adverse effect on the control of flooding, erosion, dynamic beaches, or pollution or conservation of lands, or to permit alteration to a shoreline or a watercourse or interference with a wetland. The staff has reviewed this proposed work, and a copy of the staff report has been given to the applicants. The Conservation Authorities Act, section 2812 provides that permission required under a regulation made under clause 1B or 8 shall not be refused or granted subject to conditions unless the person requesting permission has been given the opportunity to require a hearing before the authority, or if the authority so directs, before the authority's executive committee. In holding these hearings, the authority board is to determine whether or not a permit is to be issued. In doing so, we can only consider the application in the form that is before us. The staff report, such as evidence, may be given and the submissions to be made on behalf of each applicant. The proceedings will be conducted according to the Statutory Powers Procedure Act under Section 5 of the Candidate Evidence Act. The witness may refuse to answer any question on the ground that the answer may tend to criminate the person or may tend to establish his or her liability to a civil proceeding at the instance of the Crown or of any person. The procedure in general shall be informal. However, this is a quasi-judicial process and provides for evidence to be given in response to members' question. Therefore, staff and applicants will be asked to swear on oath or provide an affirmation to speak the truth. In accordance with Section 28 of the Act, an applicant who has been refused permission or who objects to conditions imposed on a permission may, within 30 days of receiving the reasons, appeal in writing to the minister who may refuse the permission or grant permission with or without conditions through order and counsel. The responsibility for hearing the appeal has been transferred to the Ontario Lands Tribunal. If the applicant has any questions to ask of the hearing board or of the authority representative, they must be directed to the chair of the board. Staff will first introduce the applicant and his or her owner and others wishing to speak, and then present the staff position. The applicant and or their agent may then speak and make any comments on the staff position if they so desire. I would also remind everyone that the hearing board is open to the public. And however, as stated earlier, this is a quasi-judicial process, and accordingly, the general public may observe, but are not third party to the matters before us today and cannot participate. We as the hearing board will question, if necessary, both the staff and the applicant or agent. Before I ask Dan Jenner, our regulations coordinator, to introduce the applications, I would ask that he swear on oath or provide an affirmation to speak the truth.
Affirmation, please, Madam Chair.
Okay. Do you solemnly affirm that the evidence which you are about to give in these proceedings will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you?
I do.
Thank you. Now, Dan, if you can introduce the applicants and the context of the applications.
Absolutely. Thank you, Madam Chair, and committee members for joining us this afternoon as we hear these three applications. All of the applications before us this evening or afternoon are related to the safe access requirements. The first application is located within the city of Windsor and made by Jordan Laverine Eid at 585 McTagg Court. Next slide, please. We can see over there on the middle of the screen the property on McTagg Court near the south end of the road, closer to Cora Greenwood. Next slide, please. And here we have a zoomed up picture of the property, and you'll note that there is an existing dwelling already located on the property. That is because the application before the committee this afternoon is for the construction of an addition to the existing dwelling. As I previously stated, we are addressing and seeking relief from the ERCA ingress and egress policy requirements. Next slide, please. The access route for this, or my apologies, the floodproofing for this particular area south of Riverside Drive and east of Riverside is 176.3 meters Geodetic Survey Canada. And that includes the 0.3 meters of board approved freeboard. The raw 100-year elevation is slightly below that. The ERCA minimum road elevation is 175.7 meters GSC, and the provincial minimum is 175.5. And this is taking into consideration the protection offered by the Ganacho Trail and other municipal infrastructure. Next slide, please. The access route for this particular property would be south on McTagg Court, and then along the side road there, and north on Cora Greenwood back to Riverside Drive. You can see that there are a few small portions that are just below the provincial minimum by approximately 4 inches and approximately 12 inches below the ERCA minimum road elevations. The road in this area is fully delineated. This area is fully developed, and emergency first responders are fully aware of the low-lying flood-prone nature of the area. They've updated their emergency response plans and have equipment in place to provide response to these areas if required. And we are satisfying all regulatory standards. With that, we are asking that the committee give consideration to waiving the ingress and egress policies to allow for the construction of an addition to an existing dwelling at 585 McTagg Court in the city of Windsor. Thank you.
Yes, Councillor Janice.
I'll move the recommendation.
And Deputy Mayor Verbeek will support. Any questions or comments? Okay, so the application from Jordan Laverine Eid to request relief from access ingress egress policy requirements to construct a dwelling addition at 585 McTagg Court, City of Windsor, has been approved. Moved by Councillor Janice, seconded by Deputy Mayor Larry Verbeek. And that is carried. Mr. Jenner, we have the next applicant.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The second application before the committee this afternoon is made by Baker Investments Limited and is located at 8380 8474 Wyandotte Street East in the city of Windsor. This is a property that recently went through a severance. There is another application that was related to this property as well before that severance that was brought before this committee, I believe about a month ago or so. So the application before us this afternoon, or before the committee this afternoon, is for the construction of, next slide please, it's for the construction of a commercial building with no residential dwelling units contained in it. They have satisfied the stormwater management requirements. They have satisfied the floodproofing requirement, and we are here seeking relief from the access, ingress, and egress policy requirements. Next slide, please. We are again south of Riverside Drive. However, this time we were on the west side of Little River, where the ERCA floodproofing elevation is 176.0 meters Geodetic Survey Canada, including the freeboard component. The road elevations, provincial minimum road elevation is 175.2 meters, and slightly above that is the ERCA minimum road elevation of 175.4 meters, which is allowing for 0.5 meters of water and 0.3 meters of water over that road surface during the 1 in 100 year storm event. Next slide, please. Again, we have an access map here showing the access down Wyandotte Street East, where we have a section that is below the ERCA minimum road elevation, and then a small section at the intersection of Watson and Wyandotte Street East, where we are below that provincial minimum. And then we keep moving west, and eventually we are out of the floodplain area. The road elevations are approximately 1.6 feet, so 0.5 meters below the ERCA minimum, and 0.3 meters below the provincial minimum, which is 1 foot below the provincial minimum. And that would be located at the deepest possible section at the intersection of Watson and Wyandotte Street East. This area is fully developed. The roadways here are fully developed. And once again, emergency responders at the City of Windsor are fully aware of the low-lying flood-prone nature of this area and have updated their emergency response plans to reflect that. We are satisfying the other regulatory standards of floodproofing and all stormwater management requirements and seeking relief from that access policy requirement. Next slide, please. So with that, the application, or we are recommending that the application from Baker Investments Limited to request relief from the access, ingress, and egress policy requirements to construct a commercial building at 8380 8474 Wyandotte Street East in the City of Windsor be approved. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jenner. Any questions or comments? Councillor Janice?
Thank you. Although we're talking about roads, Mr. Jenner, the building itself will be above the flood level, the floor height of the building.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Okay, so on the application from Baker Investments Limited to request relief from ingress and egress policy requirements to construct a commercial building at 8380 8474 Wyandotte Street East in the City of Windsor be approved. Moved by Councillor Larry Janice, or Len Janice, sorry, and Deputy Mayor Joe Becchetti. Anybody opposed? That is carried. Okay, Mr. Jenner, on the next application.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The third application before the committee this afternoon is made by Drew Colson of Colson Design Build Inc. and is located at 515 McLeod Ave in the town of Amherstburg. This property was recently severed through a Planning Act application off of the neighboring property. Next slide, please. And we are looking to build a new dwelling at this newly created property. The purpose of the hearing this afternoon is to seek relief from the ERCA ingress and egress policy requirements. And we do have a complete application before the committee this afternoon. Next slide, please. This is within the Lake Erie section of shoreline, where we are using a floodproofing elevation of 176.2 meters Geodetic Survey Canada, including freeboard. We have a ERCA minimum road elevation of 175.6 meters GSC and a provincial minimum road elevation of 175.4 meters Geodetic Survey Canada. Next slide, please. The access route at this particular location is down McLeod Ave to the 3rd Concession Road with a low spot of 175.13 meters of water, or meters Geodetic Survey Canada. We have approximately 18 inches below the ERCA minimum road elevation and approximately 10 inches below the provincial road elevation. The roadway in this area is fully delineated. This area is considered to be a fully developed area, and emergency first responders at the town of Amherstburg are aware of the low-lying flood-prone nature of the area. They have updated their emergency response plans to reflect this, and through the Planning Act application, they have provided Amherstburg with enough correspondence and evidence that Amherstburg felt and the fire department felt comfortable allowing for the new lot creation to proceed through the Planning Act. Again, we are dealing with a fully developed area, a delineated roadway, and an emergency response or Amherstburg Fire that is fully aware of the low-lying nature of this area in general. We are satisfying the other regulatory standards, which in this particular case is limited to the floodproofing elevation or lowest opening into the structure. So all openings will be above that 176.2 minimum opening. Next slide, please. So with that, we are recommending that this application from Drew Colson of Colson Design Build Inc. to request relief from the ingress and egress policy requirements to construct a new dwelling at 515 McLeod Ave in the town of Amherstburg be approved.
Thank you, Mr. Jenner. Any questions or comments? Seeing none, I'll call the question that the application from Drew Colson of Colson Design Build Inc. to request relief from the access, ingress, and egress policy requirements to construct a new dwelling at 515 McLeod Avenue in the town of Amherstburg be approved. Moved by Deputy Mayor Larry Verbeek and seconded by Deputy Mayor Joe Bacchetti. Anybody opposed? Well, that is carried. Thank you, applicants, for attending this afternoon. You are welcome to stay and listen to the rest of the meeting, but you also may sign off if you see fit. Thanks for joining us. We now have the hearing board to reconvene as the executive committee, moved by Councillor Langenese, seconded by Councillor Larry or Deputy Mayor Larry Verbeek. That is carried. How are you today, Mr. Burney?
Very good, Madam Chair.
Thank you for joining us.
You're welcome.
So we do have some tenders. New community entrance from the Cypress Systems Greenway at County Road 15. Kevin Money will be able to answer any questions related to this report.
Thank you. Committee members, we're simply providing a very brief verbal update on this project. Ultimately, we're building a new community entrance along the Cypress Systems Greenway. Funding for the project has been secured through a federal grant, 75%, and then through the Essex Region Conservation Foundation as well, is contributing about 25% of the project. The background associated with this particular project stems back to when we built the original Greenway, and we didn't have facilities in place to allow for horseback riding specifically. There's a large local outcry from the horseback riding community associated with this, that we didn't permit that type of activity. And through previous board reports provided and received, it was clear that we didn't have the parking facilities for horse transport trailers at the time along the trail that would allow the activity to proceed. So this is a large parking lot that can accommodate up to 4 to 5 trailers with horses on them. So the tender was put out, and we've received 2 bids on this particular project. Before I proceed, are there any questions regarding this particular project from any committee members? Okay. Nicole, are you able to share the tender summary sheet, and I'll open up the tender? This tender is from Sterling Ridge. Bonds and insurance are in place. Total tendered price for this is $136,269.
I'm so sorry, Kevin. Could you perhaps repeat that?
That's okay.
136.
Yeah, $269.
Okay, thank you kindly.
You're welcome. Second tender is from Matassa Incorporated. The bond and insurance is in place. Price for this particular, from this contractor is $122,675. Price for the board's understanding is within the budget allowance.
Okay, I'm sorry, Kevin, I can't pull up. What is again the budget allowance that we are looking at?
The approved budget was about $110, but we have a greater amount. There's a $10,000 contingency built into it. And the actual grant exceeds the 122.
Okay.
So we're fine from a budgetary perspective.
All right. So then I'll call the question, and the tender for the new community entrance for the Cypher Systems Greenway at County Road 15 be awarded to, and it was the second one. Was that Matassa I saw?
Correct.
Just lost that. And subject again also by favorable review.
Yep.
Or that we just enter into an agreement by, oh no, we didn't have a single one. Yep. So on the question then, that we award it. Supported by Councillor Janice, seconded by Deputy Mayor Joe Piketty. Anybody opposed? That's carried. Councillor Janice, you had a question? Certainly, go ahead.
Please. Yeah, just, we know that we're reading every day with contracts have gone up, the cost of asphalt. Do we sort of foresee this being done rather quickly, that we won't be dealing with an increase of asphalt prices?
Through you, Madam Chair, this is just a gravel parking lot. But we did make a provision for tar and chip that we'll take a look at to tar and chip the parking lot. That'll be reviewed as it relates to the full budget. But the intent is to have this built within the next 3 months.
Thank you.
Mayor Verbeek.
Thank you, really, Chair. Kevin, is this just for horse trailer parking?
No, it is not. It also includes provisions for just regular cars, and there's designated accessible parking spots as well.
Great, thanks.
Okay, so that was moved and supported and carried. And now we go for any other reports for approval, which there are none. No committee of the whole. And is there any new business that any members wish to address? Yes, Councillor Janice.
Are we considering meeting back to regular meetings, or we can continue with Zoom meetings?
If I may, Madam Chair, through you, Madam Chair, our next full authority meeting will be an in-person meeting at Civic Center.
Will it also be the option to be online if members so chooses?
No, we are not. We are not capable to run a hybridized format.
Thank you.
Great, and that is indicated in the agenda under other business. The next meeting of the ERCA Board of Directors will be held on Thursday, June 23rd at 6 p.m. in council chambers at the Civic Center. So it looks that this concludes our meeting of the Executive Committee today. Thank you all for joining us, and I'll ask a motion to adjourn. Deputy Mayor Joe Pichetti, seconded by Deputy Mayor Verbeek. Anybody opposed? That is carried.
Yeah, just to note,
Adjourn.
June 23rd, I have my school graduation that I won't be able to make it in person that evening.
Okay.
My last graduation, so I won't miss many more after that.
That's crazy.
Yeah,
Congrats.
if I can ask Tanya and Tim just to stay on Zoom, I just have a question, just the three of us. It's
Certainly.
not, yeah, it's not meeting anything on the agenda.
Okay.